life. And as we get into this conversation today, I just want to remind everyone that you're all welcome to speak, that everyone is welcome to be a part of this conversation that we're having here today, because our goal is for all of us to become more confident and effective communicators in every aspect of our lives. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your career field is, it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, communication is at the center of everything that we do. And we want everyone that becomes a part of this community and the people that we interact with when you leave this community and go to other places, because the information that you gain while you're here, the experiences that you have while you're here, you carry them with you to other places. And those engagements and interactions you have with other people, it follows you. So by doing that, we have the ability to change this world and make it a better place, one interaction at a time. And that's part of what we're trying to do here with the confident speaking community. And with that said, I want to go ahead and say hello to Raymona, who's with us today. Raymona, how are you today? You're still
Good
mute.
morning.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Good morning, Tim.
Good.
Good morning, everyone. I'm doing well, and I'm hoping that today we will have a great day on communicating.
Absolutely. I am sure we will. I'm sure we will. Mama B, how are you today? It may be some technical difficulties because I don't see the microphone or any indicators with Mama B. So I guess Mama B, maybe if you drop and come back up, then we can get in so we'll be able to hear what you're saying with us. But thank you. Let's see. Let's try this. All right. We're going to get this together. You know what? As we say, or as I often say, you start early and you just work things out. When these challenges come up, we keep moving forward and we don't allow them to sidetrack us and put us in a place where we begin to panic. And that's in an interview, whether you're hosting a space or any situation. If something comes up, you take a moment to figure out what's happening, and then you decide what the next step is to move forward. And you don't get stuck in the panic where you don't make a decision and be able to move forward. So that's what we'll do here.
The
And
devil is a liar.
there we go. So Mama B is in the house. Hey, Mama B, how are you today?
Hello, me bro, Tim. The devil is a liar, and the devil lied. So I am here. It was trying to kick me off, but I am here. Good to see everybody, and I know in my Noah that we're going to have a good space there, Ramona, with you here. Thank you for coming, and I can't wait. Looking forward to this conversation today, Mr. Tim Brown, and everyone in the space. Please, thank you so much for sharing the space in the hallway, and let all your people and the peeps know that we are here talking and having this great conversation with our guests, Ramona and Tim. And I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Mama B. And yes, as she said, thank you for sharing the space in the hallways and in the streets and spreading the word about what we're doing here. And that helps us help more people, because the goal is to have a ripple effect where it isn't just about us and just about what we can get from the situation. And I've mentioned in here a few times that when you find yourself in an environment, whether it's here or anywhere else, that you're trying to learn and grow, and you feel that you have received the tools or the information, or you've been nurtured to a point where you're better than you were before you went there, don't just walk away and leave because you got what you wanted for yourself. Figure out how you can make a contribution to help the other people who may be coming behind you, the people who may be new that may not have the same level of understanding that you do. And when you do that, it reinforces what it is that you have already learned, and it solidifies the ownership of that new knowledge that you have acquired. And then it also opens the door for you to become a resource for other people. And you'll be surprised how many people look to serve you when you make it a point to try to serve and help others. It's such a phenomenal experience that you get to have when you do that in life. And I just say that here because I know we've had a lot of conversations and there are things that you may already know, things that may be reminders to you, but don't allow that to cause you to say, you know what? Well, that's all I need. Then help other people. Figure out how you can help someone else. Share your insight, expertise, and experiences because we're all growing together here in the confident speaking community. And it's the collective contribution that we all make that allows us all to be better as we become more confident and effective communicators in every aspect of our lives. And what I want to do before we begin, we're going to have some questions for Ramona today, and she's going to share some perspectives and insights based on her years of experience in the human resources field. And what I will do is ask those questions of her, and I want you all to be thinking of some questions that you may have. You may already have questions in mind that you want to ask Ramona, but I'm going to let her share a few things first, and then we'll get into the questions from everyone else because she may actually end up answering some of the questions you have in the process of me asking her a few questions on the front end. But I just want to remind everyone that what we're doing with this space last week and today, I don't want you to walk away from here thinking that just because you go to a seminar, you listen to a space, or you read some notes about how to do great interviews, that you're going to land every job that you apply for and interview for. The purpose of this is to make sure that you have an opportunity to just kind of hear what some of the different perspectives are from other people, because every interview is going to be different. Even if they ask the exact same questions, they're going to be different personalities. They're going to be different interviewers. They're going to be different needs. And you'll be surprised that you can apply for a position at three different companies with the exact same position title, and they have three different needs at those different companies. And those are things that you don't always understand going into the process, the nuances of what they're actually looking for, even though they've given you a job description, I would say. I'm saying position description like the government, but typically they'll say job description in the private sector, I think. But those nuances. But I want you to build the confidence. I want you to have in mind the different perspectives that you need to consider as you're interacting with the different interviewers that you will come into contact with. And I want you to be able to have the confidence in knowing that even if you don't get yes, that doesn't mean that you aren't good enough. It just means that you may not be the right fit for that particular organization. Because as we talked about last week, and I posted them again, the images of the nails, that there are so many different kinds of nails out there. We want to keep in mind that there are different types of people. And no matter how strong or durable a nail may be, the nail may not fit the particular situation. So you have to remember that your skills, your personality may not fit that particular job that you are applying for and interviewing for, even though when you look at your resume, your skills seem to line up exactly. Or even if you copied the job description on your resume and said, this is what I do, as you're responding to the questions in the interview, there will be other considerations that come into mind. And I just want everyone to understand that. Always keep in mind there are going to be nuances to the individuals, not just the process itself, but the people have a great impact on that. So, with that, we're going to go ahead and get into this. And I am going to read a brief bio about Ramona so you know a little bit about who she is. And then if she wants to share a little more, then we will let her do that. But Ramona Ramsey is a retired senior human resources professional with decades of federal service, primarily in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Over her career, she has held a wide range of leadership roles, including acting Deputy Director of Human Resources at CDC, Civilian Personnel Officer at the Jacksonville District, and Senior Human Resource Advisor across multiple federal offices. Known for her expertise in recruitment, employee relations, and human resource operations, She also served as an adjunct faculty member for the Army Personnel Training Center. Post retirement, Ramona continues to contribute as a volunteer human resource consultant and youth leader at New Bethel AME Church. She holds a bachelor's degree in political science and economics from Wilberforce University and is a graduate of the Army Management Staff College. And what we're going to do before we go to Ramona, we're going to take a pause for the cause. And when we return, we're going to get right into it and see what Ramona has to share for us. To our new listeners, I say welcome and thank you for joining today's Confident Speaking Space. Our mission? To help you become a more confident and effective communicator to transform the way you live, work, and play. We have 4 pillars to help you do that. 1. The 4 P's, which are pitch, pace, power, and pause, to speak more dynamically. 2. Conciseness, which helps you sound more organized and thoughtful when speaking. 3. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, so you never miss an opportunity because you're too afraid to try. And 4. Expand your comfort zone with intentional behaviors to develop new skills that will change your life. So be brave and request the mic. I invite you to simply introduce yourself, ask a question, or perhaps share your thoughts about the topic. Our goal is progress, not perfection, and we will support you every step of the way. If you want to stay connected, join our free community on X or visit our website at confidentspeaking.us. confidentspeaking.us, and subscribe to join private discussions for more personal support and additional resources. I hope to speak with you soon. Enjoy the show. All right. So Ramona, welcome again, and thank you very, very much for being here with us today. And I know that there are going to be some great nuggets that everyone is going to walk away from this conversation with. And I want to give you an opportunity that after reading the bio, if there's something that came to mind that you felt would be great to share or add to what I share with everyone, I always like to give that opportunity just in case I missed something that was important that you didn't think about before.
The bio is just the bio, but I think what's more important is I'm one of those people that want to give back to others. And so that's one of the reasons why I think that Tim called me and said, "Hey, is this something that you want to do?" So I'm just honored to be here today in order to be a positive part of your career aspirations. So Tim, other than that, I'm ready to answer your questions.
All right, there we go. And you know what, Ramon, I'm going to make a confession or admission of divulging information because I've shared you were an example, I guess, a couple times in the space. They didn't know who you were at the time, but I remember I've shared with them I think it was the first time we met in the office, and you told me while I was sitting there, you said, "Hey, people have said that I'm crazy before. So I just want to let you know that if you want to run, you still have time to change your mind and you don't have to be stuck here." And you actually asked me that twice. And I was like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm here for it. Whatever it is, I'm here for it. Because for me, it's about adapting and being willing to make the adjustments that are necessary to do what needs to get done. But what I will tell everyone is that when I think back over my life, there are a few people, there's like 6 people that have had a specific impact in my life that I remember. And Ramona actually happens to be one of those people based on our engagement. And and the thing that really stood out to me from her was digging into the details. And I can recall how if there's a penny missing, like an accountant, anyone that's an accountant, if you're trying to balance the books, if there's a penny missing, you have to find that penny so that it doesn't seem like you're trying to scam money. And I observed how Ramona was very detailed about the most simplest of things. And I was like, most people don't think like that. And I held on to that after that experience and encounter with her. So I just wanted to throw that in there. And because you had never heard me say that before either, Ramona, but that was something that stood out. So you are one of the people on my list as they have the Times 100 people of the year. Ramona is one of the 6 or 7 people in my life that has had an impact that I remember. Now, Ramona, so my first question to you, I know that you probably met hundreds or, yeah, probably hundreds of candidates in your time. What is the very first thing you notice about someone when they walk into the room or join the call with you?
Probably the first thing that I'm going to look at is how they're going to be prepared, meaning that they're coming in and I'm looking at them, they're looking at me. We're looking in our eyes. They're going to have a good handshake. And I was like, okay, this person's got is going to be strong. Is going to be a strong person. Sometimes if we go into a room and we're looking down, or we're not sure, again, if you're coming in late, I'm going to notice that too, because you're going to have a certain period of time that I have in order to talk to, most of the time, multiple candidates. So being on time is going to be important to me, important to any of the groups, especially when you already have a set time. So coming in and just being prepared, coming in and being confident in the that you are going to be confident in coming into an interview.
Hmm, absolutely. And I like that. And you all notice, even just the body language itself. Are you looking down or are you making eye contact? Firm handshake. You don't want to break someone's hand, but you also don't want to give them the limp fish handshake. And all of those things are a reflection of your personality and your character that interviewers and hiring managers may pay attention to. And remember, some people may weigh certain things more highly than others, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to figure out how you want to present yourself. And if who you are and how you choose to present yourself doesn't line up, because remember, you're interviewing the company as well, then that's okay. But think about that. Keep that in mind.
And Tim, and
Yeah.
as one of the other aspects, I just want to make sure is that be prepared. Uh, do your research on the company. You probably can't get to like the people or that you're going to interview, but at least you should know something about the company. And that's going to be impressive, especially when you're answering some of the questions that you can relate that company and maybe what their mission is in some of the responses that you have. And that's going to be a sign to me that, okay, that you've taken this seriously as you come into this interview.
Well, let me ask you this based on that question or what you just said. Now, researching a company, because most companies have websites and they have a lot of information. And you can go to the About Us page and see what the mission is. And they could do that while they're waiting on you to come into the room, in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes. But how much is too much, or how much is, in terms of research, what extent or how do you like to see people incorporate their understanding of the company in their research process? Does that make sense?
Yes, what I'm going to be looking for is if you're going to a company, I'll just use HHS, that you know about CDC, at least like the basic mission of CDC. And most people or most companies, if you're going to work in like the human resources office, they'll have their own page. And most of us are going to put our mission and function statements on there, and just having a general understanding of what the organization is, and even say that, I've noticed that these are some of the key missions or projects that you currently are working on. And that way I'll know that you've at least done your homework before you got there.
Got it. Got it. Do you feel like people can go overboard trying to and trying to impress and do too much when it comes to sharing their knowledge of the company?
Definitely, people can do overboard. If I tell you that this is going to be, or the person that set it up for me to say that this is going to be a 45-minute interview, and in the first few minutes when you're going over, and I'm asking you, do you have any questions before we get started? And you spend a whole soliloquy of 30 minutes of that going over and telling me what my company is, then you've gone overboard. Because what I want to get to is how you're going to fit into my company. So you knowing about it. So just kind of, you got to have a balance. And again, that goes to the preparation that you have before you even come to an interview. Is already have what you're going to say, already kind of in your mind of what you want to say and some of the key points, and already have them even written on a piece of paper. And as you make those key points, you could just check it off so you're not doing the same thing over and over again. But just be prepared. Again, that's just part of the preparation when you're coming to your interviews.
Mm. Take notes, have notes. I like that. And we encourage that here. And remember, everyone, we said even when you're speaking in spaces, have some bullet points so you have a roadmap. So as Ramona has just said, it's a good idea to even have bullet points in your interview. So it sounds like interviewers are comfortable with you having notes and having some things written down so you can guide yourself and stay on track and make sure you're answering the actual questions that are being asked. You want to add something, Ramona?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that when you go in, if you have those, when you're talking to, when you're doing the introductions and all that, you can just tell them, hey, I written down a few notes if you don't mind, and I'll just be going over those as we're interviewing. So if you're telling me that up front, then I'm not going to be surprised, like, what is this person doing? So just already have that ready.
Absolutely. Communication. Communication. Make sure people are aware of what's happening so they can understand. And I would I'll add is doing that research about the company, because I know I tend to do deep dives when I'm trying to understand something, and I can go deeper than I need to in most cases. But for me, it positions me to be prepared for the unexpected as well. So looking at the mission of the company, understanding what some of the major projects may be that's going on, but I try to look for even more, because in answering my questions throughout the course of the interview, it gives me the ability to incorporate some of the things in my responses to tie my experiences into the specific areas that they present on the website, to show that I have actually done some thorough research to really understand what the company is about. But as Ramona said, to not be overwhelming and still maintain that level of conciseness. Because remember, conciseness isn't just being short, conciseness is being very thoughtful and direct and specific with what it is that you're trying to share so that you don't overwhelm someone, especially the interviewer when they're on a time crunch. Some environments, they just don't have a lot of time. They may have 30 minutes, 45 minutes to go through interviews with 10 people. And it isn't necessarily by choice. Sometimes that's just the way things work out. And you need to be prepared to make those responses in those situations like that. So, Raymona, if let me ask this. So, what are some of the things that, as you are interviewing someone, what is it that candidates may do that may cause you to mentally check out or just kind of quietly move on in the interview?
Rambling. I'm asking you a question, and you have to think of the quality of your response. So if you just keep on going over and over it, again, when I've told you, when I'm as an interviewer, I'm going to tell you, hey, we got 45 minutes, and I got about 10 questions to answer you. So in your mind, calculate, I got about 4 minutes for each question, or even 3.5, because you want some time at the end for you to give like your speech or whatever you're going to do at the end about what you can bring to me. So I'm going to be checking out if I've got 10 questions and I've told you that, and I got 45 minutes and you've taken 20 to answer the first question, I know we're not going to get through all the interview questions. So I'm probably kind of antsy, and I'll try to say, okay, thank you, and I'm going to move on, and then you're going to keep on going it. That's not a good thing. So
Mm,
just take the cues from your interviewer also.
got it. Take the cues, pay attention, read the interview, the room. And people will typically know ahead of time how long the interviews are going to be. Or is that something that you would advise that they ask so that they have the ability to prepare for the time frame?
Generally, when I'm making the interview and I'm going to set up the schedules, the person that's going to be setting up the schedule for me will tell you your interview it's at 1 to 1:30 or 1 to 1:45 because you've got a schedule. Sometimes they'll even give you an opportunity to select what the time frames are. So by then you will know how long this is supposed to be.
Okay, got it, got it. And just a bit of perspective, everyone, for those of you that may have ever applied for a federal position in the U.S. I don't know how it works in other countries, but I know in the U.S. and when they get resumes and go through these things, they have to look at all the resumes and make determinations about everyone. So if 1,000 people submit their resume, then they have to kind of take a look at those. So understand that there may be multiple positions being filled from those potential candidate pools. So you have to understand, you have to be patient when it comes to receiving callbacks and follow up information because they're probably dealing with a lot of people, but also that kind of helps you understand why you may not necessarily have a lot of time in an interview because they're trying to get through a lot of people. And again, it isn't just to shortchange you or to rush you through the process. That's just what's required based on the situation that they're dealing with at the time. But so with that in mind, what advice would you give to someone who is trying to project confidence, but they worry that they might come across as nervous or over rehearsed?
I think just being the confidence is how are you going to walk in and how you're going to sit. As I ask you the questions, you can repeat it back. Um, you can't be, I don't think, over confident, but I think you could, but you don't want to get to the point of being cocky. I think I was on last week just to kind of see how this was, and somebody kind of mentioned it was one of the gentlemen mentioned about him being overconfident, or the people thought that he was kind of cocky when he went in the interviews. Um, you can again, what Tim said, you can read the room. And to see how that is, if they're telling you, "Hey, we're going to cut you off" or something like that, then just end it and then let them move on as far as the interviewer. And there may be multiple interviewers. So just again, as you just have to understand the room. And the other thing is be prepared, get a buddy or somebody that you are comfortable with. And before you go to that interview, write down what you think. If you were the interviewer, what are some of the questions that you may have? And then do your own mock interviews before you even get there. You would be surprised at some of the questions that you think that you would have as an interview, maybe some of the questions that they ask you. So you already are ready with your response. So just do that with somebody else. Do it, especially that now that you can record yourself and then give feedback to yourself of how you're coming across. So those may be some of the things you can do before you even get to the interview, is to have a partner that you could do interview with, whether it's over the phone or whether you're going in and in a room and doing it with someone else. But that somehow you can do preparation for interviews before you even get there.
Excellent, excellent. And it comes down to practice, everyone. Practice, practice, practice. Every time you speak is an opportunity to practice. And even in those interviews, those 4 P's come into play. Your pitch, pace, power, and pause, because you don't want to put the interviewer to sleep, especially when you go into a long, drawn out response that they did not expect or need you to give them. So keep those things in mind. Everything we do, it pours over into all the aspects of life that we have and that we live. So let me ask this. What is it that you would say stands out to you about certain individuals that are consistently strong candidates? Are there certain communication habits or a way that they may phrase or present their information that seems to be consistent across strong candidates?
I think it's just being concise and answering the questions. Because a lot of times, a part of the interview that you can't get off a resume is communications. So I'm looking at how you're communicating, how that you are being concise in answering the questions, how that you are taking into account the time frame. Because if you're going to have to brief a general or a colonel or somebody, they're not going to allow you to sit there and ramble on forever. So I'm probably looking at it for those things that I couldn't pick up in the resume, like your communication skills and how would this person come across, especially if they're talking to some of our customers.
Mm, great point. So, just another reason why, and remember, everyone, so it isn't just about how good of a fit are you for the position necessarily to do the work, but can they put you in front of other people to represent them, to represent the organization? That's another reason why communication, being confident and effective communicators, is important, because people, they may need you more so than your technical skills. They may be looking for someone to help lighten the load for them so that they don't have to go to all the 50 meetings that they have every day. And they want someone on the team that has the technical skills, but that they can also trust to be in front of the customers, that won't sink the ship, so to speak, because the communication isn't as effective and impactful as it needs to be. So that matters. It makes a difference. Now, have you ever been won over by someone who didn't have the perfect resume, but they communicated in a way? It was their communication more than their resume. And what was it, if you did, what was it that they did that made you feel like, you know what, on paper, they may not be the perfect fit, but there's something about them in the way that they express themselves?
I think part of that is going to be the excitement and how they are portraying themselves in the interview. Again, the communication aspect of it, because there's some things that I can teach you, but there's some things that I can't teach you. I can't teach you how to present yourself. I can't teach you how you're going to present, then represent the company. I can teach you the aspects of the project that we're working on. So sometimes it's going to be how you're presenting yourself and saying, okay, I know I can give that person the facts, I can give them the bullets, but I know that they can represent me well to those 50 to 100 meetings that you have all the day, all the time, that I may need somebody else to do. So I'm going to look at that. And if I've given you information, and sometimes the interviewers are not just questions, it may be scenarios that I'm putting you in to see, hey, this is the project that we have. This is the aspect that we have. And so, how would you handle that? So, some of your interview questions may be how you handle things. So, I'm going to be looking at that also.
Mm, absolutely. And hiring managers, they want problem solvers. They want people who can get in, figure things out, willing to learn, and willing to take initiative. So keep that in mind, everyone. Now, when you ask someone to tell me about yourself, what is it that you're looking for when you ask that question?
Collaboration, how you work well with others. One of the questions I may ask you is, if I went to your colleagues, what would they say about you? Those types of things, because we don't live in an environment anymore where it's just you working by yourself. Everything is a team aspect in order to get projects done. And sometimes they're not people in your offices, they could be people in other offices. So I'm going to look at how that person can work well with others. And again, some of those scenarios would be that I put in the questions that I would ask are not just yes and no answers. They're going to be setting you up like some kind of situation. And how would you handle that, or how have you handled it in the past?
Got it. Got it. Okay. Well, and I'm just gonna ask a few more questions, and then that way we can give the listeners and everyone else an opportunity who wants to ask a question to you to get some specific answers they may be looking for. But I think these will be good for everyone to think about. So, how do you evaluate someone who may stumble or blanks during a question? And what is it that matters most to you in those situations? Is it their recovery or the mistake that you kind of hold on to the most or focus on the most?
Definitely the recovery. I can ask you a question, and this could, I call them dramatic pauses happen. And you could say, if you give me just a second to think about it, I would get, and I can do that. And then you come back with a response. So there's nothing wrong with saying just a minute, let me think about it, or a few and take a few seconds to think about the question. I would rather you do that than automatically having a question or an answer and it not even be really what I've asked you in the question. Also, asking clarification questions. If you're not sure what I meant or the context of what I meant, just saying, let me clarify. This is the response, this is what you're asking me. That's okay too. Because again, that goes back to the communication.
Mm, absolutely. Asking the questions, taking time to pause, to think. You don't have to jump right into a response. Give yourself time to think about what it is you want to say. And I think for a lot of people, when you jump right into a response, that's a great way to ramble, to find yourself rambling because you didn't think about what it was you actually wanted to say or how you wanted to say it. So keep that in mind, everyone. Don't be afraid to take a pause for the cause and think about it. And it shows thoughtfulness. It shows that you won't just jump into decisions because that matters. Those are little details that hiring managers may be paying attention to. If you jump into every question with a response right away, then how will you jump into decisions that have an actual impact on the bottom line of the organization? So those nuances, they matter. And we need to be thinking about that and understanding the impact of the little things, the details that can have a tremendous impact because timing matters. Timing matters. Now, when what would you say is the best way that a candidate has handled a difficult question? You know, maybe something that they weren't expecting and you knew they weren't expecting it. What would you say was a great way that they handled that question or to potentially handle it?
I think the best way to answer that is that first of all, they asked for a clarifier. And then two, they gave a scenario. Well, this is the situation that I had. This is how I handled it, and this is what the outcome would be. So I think those were the provoking ways that I can look and see, okay, that's how I would handle it. This is the outcome that you want. Even if it was a bad outcome, even if it's a lesson learned, you would still be okay.
Mm, excellent, excellent. And one thing I want to say, just to add, based on Ramona's response to the previous question, when it comes to clarification, one thing that I learned with and saw with Ramona is that if there's a task that needs to get done, and not all leaders will do this, they don't always give you this opportunity. But her thing was, if you aren't sure, ask me. I'll spend 30 minutes answering questions so that you can understand what the assignment is on the front end so that we don't get 2 weeks down the road and then you come back with something that has nothing to do with what the actual ask was. And that's something that I recognize. And most people, well, I won't say most people, I haven't encountered leaders that do that, that open the door and kind of push to make sure that you are clear A lot of them will say, like, there I go again. I've encountered some that will say, well, I'm not really sure. Just kind of figure it out and just do something. Just give me something to look at. But she's clear on what it is she's trying to do, and she opens the door for that clarification. And when someone is willing to let you get clarification, you know that's someone that's probably going to keep you in a good position to be able to succeed. Because if you don't know what the goal is, if you don't know what the expectations are, it's hard to be successful in an environment where your leadership or the hiring manager doesn't understand what it is that is expected of you and have the ability to articulate that and are willing to allow you to understand at whatever level it is that you need to understand. Now, I'm not saying that in those interviews you need to take 10 minutes asking questions, but that was just something that came to mind that I thought about. But when you have a moment or if you need to, make sure you understand what they're looking for. Because in some interviews, when someone says, tell me about yourself, if they have an hour or more, depending on the interview, they may actually want to know who you are as a person outside of your work environment. And it could potentially be a good idea to ask. What perspective do you want me to share, from the professional perspective, or but you'll know based on the conversation and the things that they're sharing with you. But clarification is key. You need to understand what you're dealing with before you try to respond or provide something to someone when they are asking for it. Now, culture culture fit is something that is common, that comes up in interviews. But what I have seen and kind of heard here recently in recent years is that the idea of culture fit has become a tool to conveniently disqualify someone for a position. Now, what's your thoughts on culture fit, Raymona? And when you're interviewing someone, how do you pick up on whether they'll fit in with your team? And how does their communication help you figure that out?
I think a lot of that would be how they work with teams. If I asked them that question about what would your team members, your current team members, say about you, and the things that I would be looking for would be that they're a good collaborator, that they're like easy to talk to, that they will pull their load, those types of things, instead of saying, well, I don't work with a team. That's going to be a red flag for me, because everything, at least now, we do is with a team. So, but the culture part, I want diversity in my teams, because I think I know I will get a better product if everybody's thinking like me, just the way that I think. Then I don't think I'm going to get a good project or a good outcome. So what I'm trying to do is to find people with different backgrounds, um, that can help us get to the best of that particular project.
Mm, great perspective. And that's something to keep in mind for those of you that are leaders, that may be the hiring managers. Think about diversifying your team so that you're able to fill the gaps. And that's why it's so important to understand your people as a leader. You have to put in the time to understand who each individual is. What are their strengths? What are their areas of opportunity? So that as you're trying to fill a position, you're able to identify someone who can potentially fill one of those gaps to enhance the strength of your team overall, not just get a warm body in a chair. Because there are times people will hire warm bodies and it can be detrimental. It's almost like promoting the good worker to a position of leadership when they aren't really a leader. That's one of the worst things you can do is simply promote someone to leadership because they do good technical work. And what you end up finding in many cases is it almost destroys the team because their leadership style or inability to lead effectively becomes a deterrent and a hindrance. It can destroy morale and it can run people away because they don't know how to deal with people. and understanding for your culture. You need to understand what the culture of your team is, because you may not be responsible for an entire organization. But if you're hiring for a team, what is the culture? You can shape the culture as a leader. And remember, you can always tell the character and personality of a leader by the behavior of the team overall, because it flows from the head down. So keep that in mind. So when you're the one that's in charge, make sure you're creating the type of culture that people actually want to be in. And I remember seeing someone put in their email notice, or it's like a status statement. When you click on someone's name, it has a message if you want to put that there. And then his status message, it said, train people well enough so they can leave, but treat them well enough so they don't want to. Train people well enough so they can leave, but treat them well enough so they don't want to. Because remember, most people don't leave jobs. They leave bosses that they don't like, that they don't work well with. So you treat them well enough so they don't want to leave. So that's kind of a side note, but it's relevant to the big picture of what we're doing and discussing. Now, are there any red flags that come to mind for you, Raymona? You know, candidate has a great resume. They essentially copied the position description or the job description, and there's no way to really debate their qualifications technically based on what they put on the resume. But what are some of the red flags that come up for you in an interview that make you say, I don't think that's a good fit?
If they have copied I know the job description because I wrote it. So if they're copying that, that's one of the reasons why I use scenarios, uh, because I'm going to be testing that's a test to say, how did you do this project? Oh, I worked on this particular um, system, like one of like a recruitment system. So I may say, okay, I know the system, so I may ask questions related to the system and to find out how it really, because I know how it works, to find out if they really did something. Also, a lot of people on their resumes will say, I led this or I assisted this. What I want to know is, what part did you assist in? What were your actual duties related to that particular project? So again, just not answering questions about what I could find on a resume, but actually doing scenarios related to the resume or to the job is an easy way for me to figure out, like, really didn't do this, or they just copied the vacancy announcement or the duties in the vacancy announcement. So just be careful when you're doing that, is that you know exactly what the job is, because if it's like me, I'm going to ask you questions related to that particular project and how you handled it in the past, and maybe you didn't. So that's a red flag for me.
Hmm. All right. And that goes back to the preparation you mentioned earlier. Make sure you're prepared. And as I like to tell everyone, is always have a story for every bullet point on your resume, so that you have the ability to explain something and explain it in a way that demonstrates your understanding of what it was that you did and how what you did added value where you were. So be careful with that. If anyone happens to, not necessarily copy everything word for word, but if you borrow some of the points to try to get to the interview, make sure you're able to provide validation for why it's actually there on your resume. Because there's some clever people out there, clever hiring managers as well. So they're aware of some of the tricks and games that people will play as well. So it's almost like kids, the ones trying to get the job. We may think in your mind that, well, they don't know what's going on. They'll never recognize it. But some people are that detailed where they look for those types of indicators, which can be potentially a reflection of your character, which would say, well, they aren't a good fit, because based on what I'm seeing here, what I've read, and what I'm hearing, this is all made up. So be careful about that. Now, the last question I'll ask is for someone trying to figure out how to maximize their impact in an interview, are there a couple things or few things that you would say that you think they should walk away with, that they should always keep in mind? Just as some points of advice you would share.
I would also always have, and this is something that I've learned years ago, is that when you're applying for a job, have we call it a elevator speech, which means quick and to the point. Is if I'm going to ask you, one of the last questions on my list are going to be, what are some of the things that you want to share that we haven't discussed? So have that elevator advertisement about yourself that you want me to know. You know, strong. I'm a good leader. I'm very good on collaborations. Or what are those things that we didn't talk about that you want me to know? So always have that, because generally they're going to ask you that kind of question. Also, have some questions of the interview. It's I guess it's just hard to me when we've gone through the interview, and then one of the last parts I'm going to ask is, do you have any questions? And a red flag to me is people that don't have any questions, because I know I could not have answered everything that they wanted in the time that I had, because I'm just focusing on the job. So just have some kind of thought provoking questions that you want to know about the organization, about me as a leader, about the team as a whole. So have some of those types of questions, kind of fillers, if we have extra time, that you can ask, so I know that you are interested in the job and what you can bring to the job based on those questions that you would ask me.
Hmm. And I think those questions, demonstrate they further demonstrate your collaborative mindset and perspective when you ask about the team, because if you get the position, you're going to have to deal with that team. And if you don't think to ask what the culture is like, what the environment is like, what it's like working with the team, what are some of the challenges or struggles or successes, then you may not necessarily be a strong collaborator, because collaborators want to understand that. And I know, like for me personally, I enjoy collaboration. I think it creates better products and outcomes, as Ramona said. And I want to understand to some degree who are the people I'm going to be dealing with. What is it like working with these individuals? Because even as the interviewee, you're still interviewing the company as well to make sure that it's a good fit for you. So you need to understand what's a day in the life of the people in that organization that you're applying for, like, to make sure that it actually makes sense for both of you. And I want to pose this, Ramon. I said that was the last one a moment ago, but thinking about what you said about the questions, are there any questions that you feel, for you at least, because everyone's different, are there any questions that you feel people should stay away from during the interview process? Because I know people always want to know about the money, and some job descriptions or positions don't tell you how much you could make. But are there any questions that you feel people should probably stay away from?
I think maybe the makeup of the organization, like how old are the people? That's not a good question. Uh, of the other team members, or what's with all due respect, the racial makeup of the team members? Those aren't things that I would ask about. I would ask about things about what are the expectations, excuse me, of the team, or what are the expectations of me as a manager to the job that you're going to be filling, or what are the challenges. So I would put a different spin on it, about what are the challenges that you see in this particular job within the next year or year and a half. Those types of things, or what the things that I would go to versus the things about the makeup of the team, that kind of thing that I would stay away from.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to be selfish. And we're going to give everyone else an opportunity to ask some questions. And I see we have a couple hands that are already there to ask some questions. But before we go to the hands, we're going to take a quick pause for the calls. And when we return, we're going to go to Mama B and then Bob and see what they want to find out from Ramona. Greetings to everyone here in today's Confident Speaking space. Your presence is greatly appreciated, and we would love to hear from you. Our goal is progress, not perfection. So please don't be afraid to request a mic. You're invited to share your thoughts as a speaker or in the chat. We're all growing together, and we're here to help you become a more confident and effective communicator in every aspect of your life. If you're enjoying the conversation and want to stay connected, you can join our free community on X for updates about future spaces. But don't forget to visit our website at confidentspeaking.us for additional resources and to continue your journey. Enjoy the rest of the show. Mama B, I see your hand. What do you have for us?
Yes, you see me. My goodness, I really just want to take a minute, not a minute, I'm just saying a breath, to just appreciate you, Tim, for bringing Ramona. When you were reading her credentials, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, wow, Tim is bringing this level of quality to the space. And so listening also to what we are hearing from Ramona, I'm thinking, man, this is just invaluable. And I hope you people are shared the space in the hallways, because we don't want to be stingy here. We want to share this information from Ramona. And also, I'm just so touched that you joined X this month, which tells me that you joined X to come here and be with us. I am just so touched by that. Thank you so much, Ramona. There is a lot of things that you touched that I'm not going to touch. I just want to bring attention to a question in the chat. Somebody asked about the STAR method. The STAR method is in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go there because I don't want to kick myself out, but it's somebody left the message there about the STAR method. Let me see if I can go back so I know Tim doesn't want to have to be going back and forth. I am here. Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, can you please talk a little bit about the STAR method, responding to the interview question? That's what they said. And I kind of edited there. So I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Okay, I was trying to get back to it. Yes, there is a STAR method, and I'm sorry. Somebody's trying to call me, and I'm on my phone talking to you guys. So you're my priority right now. Is that the situations that you have to make sure that you cover those? To the technical aspect of it, your response to it, and how whatever activities that you had related to it. That's what you.
Yes. And that's a great way. I would encourage everyone to think about, as you have your bullet points. Remember the idea of having a story for every bullet point on your resume, because if you put it there, that means you consider it to be significant and you expect it to be valuable to the person who's reading your resume. So you should have a story. And with that story, use the STAR method for that story. The situation, the task, the action, the results that came about as you went through that particular bullet point, so that they understand how you may be able to add value to their organization as well. Because what you did may not exactly align with what they're trying to do and what they may need you for, but using the STAR method, it allows you to demonstrate some of the transferable skills that may be relevant to what they're doing. And they can see how bringing you on board to join their team is still beneficial, even though on the resume there may be some gaps they feel, well, I don't know, I'm missing some things here, but I'm going to give it a try because I saw one thing on the resume that made me say, let's at least hear them out. And that's where you get to really shine, where you get to be a star by using the STAR method in the interview. So, Bob, oh, go ahead, Ramona. Go ahead. Okay, I thought Ramona was going to add something. Bob, I see your hand, sir. How are you today?
Hello, sir. I'm doing fine. Thank you very much. How are you, Tim?
Fantastic. I am absolutely fantastic, sir. If I was any better, I would be you.
My days. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me up. I found the discussion very interesting. I recently have been trying to put together a resume. I haven't done one or needed one for over 20 years because I've been running my own business. And I've got the resume now, but I'm at the stage, and it's interesting that you mentioned the elevator pitch. I'm kind of at that stage where I need to condense it down into some kind of elevator pitch. So at the moment, I've got one tagline. I connect dots in tech for businesses from discovery to solution. But it's a little bit longer to have like an elevator pitch. So my question is around kind of what do you do before you get the interview? What kind of things do you need to do to get noticed? And quick introduction is probably quite important. So what kind of things are you looking for from people to stand out? What kind of things do you want from a quick introduction? Thank you very much.
Bob, probably the quick introduction is because that resume is your introduction. So having a resume that's concise, that it goes along with, again, with the things that I have in my mission statement or my function statement as far as the company's concerned, things that I can see in your resume that says it's going to fit me, those are the things that I would put in my resume. I wouldn't have a resume that, and so I'm just telling you, 10 or 12 page long resumes, I'm sorry, I'm not going to have a chance to review those. So those are probably going into my B or C pile. I need a resume that's just that I can look at. There's probably maybe a couple of pages that would tell me exactly what you're doing, that is explaining how it's going to fit my company and the duties and responsibilities that I have and that I'm looking for, that you think that I'm looking for. Probably don't use acronyms. I would say do those things that are specific and put those in there. That's how you're going to be found as far as your resume and be pulled up to the interview. Because what I had to do before I retired is I had like multiple types of resumes. If I was looking for the HR professional, I had one focused on that. If I was looking for one that was equal employment opportunity, because that's another aspect, I had one that focused on that. If I had one that was focusing on a leadership position, then I had a resume that was focusing those aspects of the particular jobs. So again, if you are looking for, and then depending on the position that you're looking for, then that resume is what's going to get you to the interview.
Thank you, Ramona. I'm wondering, do you ever contact anyone from Content Like Honor Space, or you see somebody in the video? Do you ever do any reaching out to other people because they've had something good in their introduction that has sparked curiosity?
Generally, that when I get the list with all the resumes and I'm looking through them, that's the types of things I'm looking for. My next step after I do the resume review is going to be the first interview. And that's where I'm going to call them up because there was something in that resume that said, this looks like a strong candidate. The resume is how I do my next scrub of the candidates.
All right. So it's all down to the resume. I got you. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Tim. Thank you, Ramona. I appreciate you. And shout out to Mama B.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bob. And I think to your question, Bob, it comes down to really understanding the environment as well, because different organizations will have different processes. And from the federal side, it isn't as straightforward or as easy as for someone in the private sector to see your video and say, Bob, I want to give you a job. On the federal side, there's a process that needs to be followed, and there are certain procedures that come into play. But to your question again, from that perspective, there are people who will do that, who may see your video, they may see something you wrote or hear you speak in a space, but it all comes down to the circumstance, which goes back to the illustration of the nails. Certain people, if someone is trying to build a deck, they won't use framing nails that you put inside of a picture frame, the tacks that put the little trim on the bottom of your wall. They need the nails that are built and equipped to endure the weather, the rain and the cold and the heat that's outside. So you can be found that way. It isn't necessarily the fastest way for it to happen, but it's possible. So just make sure that the information that you put out about yourself is what you want people to know you for, and that it represents who it is you are and what value you can provide for the people that may need what it is that you have to offer. Because you have to remember that there's millions of people that come on here, and a lot of them don't need what you have. They don't need what I have, because if everybody needed it, we have 50,000 people in this space right now. But this isn't what everyone wants or needs right now. Well, they need it, but they don't want it, and that's the difference. So I would just say, put it out there, be patient with it, but put yourself in positions and scenarios where you do get recognized. And I can say, and actually, this is personal experience, where being visible opens the door for opportunity. Because I had a position a few years ago, because I participated in this leadership training program. And at the end of that program, we were required to do a presentation. Of the small group that I worked with, that I collaborated with, we had to do a presentation. And one of the positions that I had, when I spoke to that manager, that hiring manager, they told me that as I was looking for someone to fill this role, they had someone else in mind initially, but that person wasn't available. But they remembered the presentation, my role in the presentation, and they said to themselves, man, I had what I needed right here under my nose the entire time. But it was because of the presentation that I did that allowed them to remember me. So you never know when it may happen. There's no guarantee, but it is possible. And I'm living proof that it's possible when you put yourself out there, that you can get recognized for opportunities like that. So thank you for coming up and asking that, Bob. And I want to remind everyone, there are people who probably wouldn't listen to something like this, or don't think that it's necessary or important, because you may be a business owner and getting a job isn't on your radar. But I would say that the information, the understanding, and the perspective is good to have, because life changes. Life can change in an instant. You never know. And there are so many people, because there was a time where federal employment in the US was a symbol of stability. And now there are thousands of federal employees that are looking for work, that did not have to worry about doing interviews, that weren't going around trying to find new positions. So even if you're a business owner, things can change. The environment can change. Some of the things that's going on in the economy are putting businesses out of business, and some of them are having to look for jobs. So I'm saying that so that you never feel like information that you can get is not important to you because you don't need it, because we just never know when things can change. I've seen the ups and downs in my life and in other people's lives as well, where you're flying high one day, and the next day you're trying to figure out how to put the wings back on the plane so you can fly again. So take it to heart. Mama B, I see your hand, and then we'll go to Grace.
Yes, just a quick one. Thank you, Tim and Ramona. You know, first of all, this conversation here just brings it home of how important spaces like this are, because all through what Ramona was saying, I hear you have to be concise, don't ramble, don't, answer the question that you're being asked, and prepare, put bullet points so you're concise and all that stuff. At the same time that you need to be detailed. For instance, those situational questions, you need to be detailed about, okay, I did this, is my part that I played, this was the problem, this is the how I brought the solution and the outcome. You have to be detailed with all of that. At the same time, being concise so that you don't ramble on. So conversations and spaces like this are really, really important, and even just for speaking in spaces and hosting spaces or effective communication. And so, it is so right on. So thank you. But the question that I have is because you said about diversity and the value of diversity in thought, diversity in background, and all that diversity. And so I started to think about, because I'm an African, right, and I live in North America, and I struggled so much in my job search life. Thank God I'm not anymore, because of my name. So the question I'm asking for all these younger people in this space: how important is the name on the resume? Because we live in the world that we live in, actually, not a fantasy. In the world that we live in, there are some stumbling blocks to the human beings, because HR managers and them are human people. They're human. And so they bring into this space of selecting candidates their own humanness, however they were influenced. So how important is how important it is for people who have unusual names to think about what could be causing a barrier for them to even be called for an interview. I'm done speaking. Thank you.
That is a good point, and then I mean it's the reality of it. I would hope that in 2025 that we would not have that, but the reality is that we do. So I would make sure that no matter what my name is, or that the information that I have in the resume, that they can't get around, that they wouldn't get around it, that they would say, I don't really care what that name is. I'm looking at the skill set that person can bring to me and to my job. But unfortunately, in 2025, we still need to look at those types of things where you're going back and looking at, person's name, and that's the reason why we even we even say don't even put your pictures on your resume anymore. Don't even do that, because we do have people that are simple-minded, that don't appreciate that just in a name or what you are, your gender or whatever, that those are hindrances to you, and that they should be assets to you.
Absolutely. And as Ramona said, that's a reality of the world we live in, unfortunately. And what I would add to that is it's probably a godsend that if your name is a hindrance, that's probably an environment you don't want to be in anyway, because that again is a reflection of character. And if your name is enough to make them prejudge and put you in a certain category, you can only imagine what it's going to be like on a day-to-day basis working with that person or those people. Because if they're able to do that in the hiring process, there are more than likely other things going on within the culture. People have to feel empowered to do the things that they do. The culture should dictate that someone's name should have no effect on how they are being hired or how the determinations are being made. And I was excited to see how I remember being part of a resume review team at one point, and how at the organization they made some adjustments where they actually removed names so that people wouldn't have the opportunity to be biased based on the names of the individuals. So that's culture. That's leadership that says we want to do things a certain way. And we want to minimize the opportunity for the humans to be human in those moments, because sometimes their humanity is not very humane. And it's important. So for those of you who are leaders, business owners, even if you aren't in charge, you have the ability to demonstrate the character, the personality traits that will open the door for others to be able to see a different way to do things. You don't have to comply with bad behavior because that's what everyone else is doing. Sometimes they need one person to show them a different way, and you could be that person. And that's why confident and effective communication is so important for me, and why I want this to be spread with all of you and so many other people, because it has a tremendous impact on what's going on. So just keep that in mind. Just thank God that they didn't hire you if you found out it was because of your name or a picture that they decided they didn't want you to be around, because it is a reality. Now, one thing that I will tell you, I will say this though, even the most bigoted bigots, people want to make their money, and people will work around certain things if they feel like it's going to help them make money. So don't be afraid, because I'm willing to make the adjustments that I need to make for certain situations if I feel like being in a certain position is going to be of value, and it becomes a stepping stone to do something else, to position myself for something greater. I'm willing to make that kind of sacrifice to move forward, because I know that it's part of the process. And you just have to understand how you feel about those situations, because I see it. We've all seen it where people from different countries, they will use a different name. They'll use an English name, Eddie Wong instead of Chi Wong. They will use different names, and that's because the opportunity is more important than allowing the, I don't even want to call it pride, because it isn't pride that someone wants to maintain and use their parent given name. It isn't pride. But if I had that opportunity or a position to get into a role that I know could change my life and my family's life, I'd be, uh, Michael Brown, to get the position, if that's the middle name or whatever it is. But it just depends on what it is you want and what's most important to you. But yeah, don't sell yourself short. It comes down to your goal and where you're trying to be. And are you willing to do some of the things that might be a little uncomfortable to get there? Because remember, life is not easy. There's always going to be uncomfortable circumstances that we have to be in from time to time to get where we're trying to go. That's part of what builds us up. That's what gives us our strength and makes us strong to be able to endure the challenges that inevitably are going to come our way. So I thought about that and just wanted to add that little tidbit to keep in mind. But that's where we are in 2025. But be who you are. But if you want to play in someone's game, you have to play by their rules. Just something to keep in mind. But thank you for that response, Raymona. I see Waylon. And if anyone else wants to have some questions that they want to ask, you want to come up and ask something of Ramona, by all means, come up and share. Or if you have some experience and you've heard a question and you have a unique perspective that people may not have considered, then we want to hear that as well. Waylon, how are you? How are you, sir? Welcome to the space.
Tim.
Yes.
Yeah, it was Grace.
Grace was first. Grace was after me.
I don't even see. Okay, there she is. Grace, she had disappeared on my screen. That's why I went to Waylon.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, she's disappeared in mine now.
Okay.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah,
there she
she's
is.
back now. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
There we go. All right. Grace, how are you today?
I'm grateful. Tech issues, anyway, so grateful. Raymona, I'd like to know the meaning behind your name because when I first heard Ramona, I went back to a story when I was little, and it was Ramona Beasley, and it was a fond memory because you don't hear the name Ramona or Raymona. So you're a ray of light to the room. I want to thank you for coming and volunteering your time. The other question besides your name is what are you recreating in this retirement? I like the word recreatement instead of retirement because I know you have a lot to give, and what are you going to be doing next? And then my comment about this whole thing is I almost didn't come, but Tim always brings, because of the topic, I wasn't that interested in interviewing, but then I realized we can always learn something. And Tim is the space I come to. And I realize this actually applies to so many areas like dating, the dating process. And so it might not be the right fit. We have to say this or better. And it's all a learning process. And there was a lot of value. And I want to thank you, Ramona. And I want to bless you that these be your best years ever and that you can enjoy your retirement as you recreate this new season of your life. Thank you, Tim, again. Mama B, always a great co-host. And bring some more speakers up here. And Waylon, I'm looking forward to your question, too.
Thank you. My name is my dad. I'm named after my father. His name is Raymond, and I was the firstborn. And I don't think the truth, I don't think they had a girl's name. So they just changed the D to an A. So I'm Raymona. So that's what the aspect of my name.
I love it. Thank you. I love it.
So I am a chip off the old block. The other thing, as far as the retirement part, is just gives me opportunity to kind of expand and do things like this. When Tim called me, and I was like, sure. And other people have said, now that you're gone, can you do this, that, and the other? A lot more with my youth at the church. For them to understand, because we really have to train up the youth to kind of take over. So really good aspect with recreating that and spend a lot more time with the youth at the church. And I can't remember what the third question was.
No, it was just a comment thanking you, and that it was about, it's similar to the dating process of, this is really important. The interview process is to have that elevator pitch, know who you are, know who you're looking for. It's because, it's the right fit in life, whether it's a job or a marriage partner, we want to have the right fit. So thanks again, Ramona. I had a feeling it was over somebody special, and you are very special. And it reminds me of my dear daddy too. And Mama B, I see your hand back up. Love you guys. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank
be
you.
remembered for yeah, thanks for sharing, and what a delight. And I can see you teaching in larger platforms because a lot of people need your valuable insight and information, and you could just have a room full of kids come in a space like this and really teach the world a few things of all ages. So thanks again. Thanks, Tim. You always bring great value.
Thank you, Grace. And see, Grace is a real-time example of what I just explained, how sometimes people will disregard the title of something as being unimportant, or not unimportant, but not being interested in it because you don't recognize the connection of different aspects of life. And when we learn to bring together those different parts of life, just because you may be a graphic artist doesn't mean that you can't provide value for someone who is a software engineer, or being able to tap into the different parts of the world, the different parts of life, and bring them together and use your skills in different environments. But Grace says she was able to still get something from this. And she's absolutely correct, because I want y'all to understand that as we talk about interviews for jobs, there's also interviews because some of you are going to be on television. You're going to be interviewed in spaces. You're going to be interviewed for podcasts. And all of those are things to keep in mind. So don't, and you notice I didn't say nailing your next job interview necessarily, even though that's kind of the focus. But I still want you to think beyond that, how you may be interviewed in a number of different ways. You interview people for relationships. That's an interview. That's essentially what it is. They're extended interviews where you're trying to get information and you're trying to convince them that they should spend more time with you and tell you all their secrets and want to get married and have kids or whatever it is you're hoping for. It's interviewing, and it's all about being able to tell the story of you. How well are you able to present yourself and to convince someone that you're the person that they want to have or should have in their life or in their business? Something to think about. Mama B, go ahead. I saw your hand was up, and then we'll go to Waylon.
Yes, my hand is up because I just cracked up when Grace talked about how she didn't think that this topic would be interesting. And then once she's in here, she realized that, oh yeah, dating, because that's exactly what I was thinking. I didn't think about dating, Grace. I thought about the topic, but I came here because of, force of habit. That's where I am every Saturday. But the topic, I didn't see myself in the topic at all. And so, but once I'm here, I'm listening, I'm thinking, oh my God, this topic actually I need to be hearing because of all of the good stuff that I heard and where it all can apply. And so Grace was saying about dating. I'm like, oh yes, my elders are coming through because there's other elders here. Ingrid, I'm looking at you, and so I'm thinking about the speed dating. That we need this conciseness for where we are with my fellow elders who are, Grace, I call it refinement. We are not in retirement. We are in refinement. We are in preferment. We are doing what we prefer. And so if what we prefer is dating, and this will teach us how to be concise in that speed dating events that we'll start going to. I'm done speaking. Bye.
There you go. There you go. Repurposing, taking something that was intended for A and B and use it for X, Y, and Z. And as confident and effective communicators, we know we think beyond the surface. Remember, we dig beneath the surface. We listen for what isn't said, and we learn to see the things that aren't obvious to others. So, speed dating. So, it sounds like there's going to be a speed dating space coming up soon, I imagine, where we're going to hear about the shenanigans and the finaglings going on with the crew.
And you don't have to change your name for speed dating because your exotic name works very well in speed dating. That's right.
Very short interviews. That's all they are. They're interviews. Waylon, I saw your hand. You were next, sir, and then we'll go to Ingrid after that. And then Krishna.
Hey, Tim, Mama B, RD, what's up, everybody? Happy Mother's Day. Happy Saturday. You actually just touched a little bit on what I was going to say, Mama B. Like, even in a job interview, sometimes changing your name to something mundane is the wrong move. Sometimes they're looking for that unusual thing. Coming from somebody who's American with an unusual name in America, sometimes it comes across weird. They hear, what is it, William, Wayne? What is it? And so, yeah, it's crazy. But I always wanted to do a speed dating sometime. That would be interesting. But yeah, I would say as far as the interview thing and dating and interviewing, that's a thicker topic there, Tim, because I'm a single man and, it's a constant battle. I tell you what, though, it's kind of sad because you have to sort of put a bunch of stuff out there at the beginning that typically you wouldn't want to do in a relationship that you want to develop naturally. But now, especially as I'm getting older, I got a little silver fox going on. It's like, hey, let me list out the things that I'm looking for, and you list out your things, and then we're both annoyed and bored because we don't want to see or hear that already. So it's very frustrating. I don't remember what my question was at this point, but yes, have a good day, everybody.
So this may be one of those moments where Ramon is like, okay, let me get us to the next question really quickly.
No, but everybody's talking about that. It's about the expectations. So whether it's the expectation of a job, whether it's the expectation of a partner, it's all about what you want and what they have. So it's interesting.
It is expectation. And see, for some reason, and when you think about tying it all together, the relationship aspect and the job interview that takes place. In the job interview, you're trying to share as much information and get as much clarification as you can on the front end so that you make sure you don't put yourself, or you minimize the possibility of putting yourself in a bad situation. And that's, as the interviewer, the candidate, or the employer, you're trying to dig as much as you can without crossing any lines or boundaries that would violate any regulations or anything like that. But for some reason, when it's dating interviewing, people tiptoe and they won't set expectations, and they're afraid to say what they want and afraid to ask the questions. So it almost sounds like there should be relationship descriptions. You have position and job descriptions. Maybe there's partner descriptions so that you can say, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I'm hoping for, and people can see it and they can make a decision. Am I able or willing to at least try to live up to those expectations? Because if not, why are you wasting time with one another anyway? Something to think about. So, great way to summarize that, Ramona. It comes down to expectations, and you need to understand what the expectations are. And as we discussed, managing expectations, where you set the expectation of who you are, who the hiring manager, what they can expect from you as a candidate or as someone on their team. That's what you're doing. You're creating an expectation for them so that they can decide if what you offer is what they need and what they want to have on their team. So thank you both for that. Well, all three of you for bringing that into it. So let's go now over to Ingrid. How are you, Ingrid? You're muted if you're speaking, Ingrid.
No, I can't get it.
It's you got it. You got it.
I got it?
Yep, you got
Oh,
it.
goodness. Oh, my goodness. You guys are making me laugh here. I am bursting. I want to share, and it's like, it's going crazy. But no, the devil is busy, but we're not going to let him take over. But anyway, hello, everyone. And first, I must say, Ramona, I have to apologize. I heard your name, and I'm thinking Ramona, the Spanish in me, which actually means protecting hands. I feel like today I came in, well, I'm always here, but today it's like I came in into good hands. The topic today is awesome. You brought in a wealth of knowledge, and folks, share the room. This is definitely a space that everyone, no matter what part, whatever you're doing in life, this space brought some joy, and it also brought some things that we need to put ourselves in order. And thanks again. I just loved it. And Mama B, we have lots of topics for later, but this is, I really, really like this space. I just wanted to say that. And I'm sort of thirsty, so I'm going to go drink some water, and I'll bring my hands up again because I have something else to say. Thanks.
There we go. So thank you, Ingrid. Glad you were able to make it, as always. And I see that we have, let's see, this is Tweet Bloke. I see Tweet Bloke's hand that's up. Tweet Bloke,
Hi.
how are you? You have a question for Raymond?
Hi. Yeah, I love the topic of the space. Thanks for getting the word. I'm walking home with a broken rib, so bear with me. I broke the rib yesterday. I don't know much about dating, so I'll just focus on job interviews, yeah, because that I know a bit more about. As a matter of fact, I'm leading a large team of 800 plus, and we have outsourced HR in an independent company. So what I want to say about dating is very simple. Two things, yeah. It's one, demonstrate activity, and secondly, passion for what the company is doing. Yeah, a certain passion. And with one activity, I mean it can be as simple as, well, I got fired 3 months ago, but doing the I'm picking up dirt on beaches. Yeah, the weekends. I found a new hobby. That's as active and valuable as talking about your years and years of jobs here, left and right. So avoid the topics that are in the middle, right? That are mainstream. Um, jobs topics in the middle include what are your past experiences, what diploma studies you did, etc. And avoid stuff in the middle as well on the company side. For example, what will I earn? What car will I drive? Because we in Belgium here, we have lots of company cars. Yeah, you're getting one if you're in IT like me. You're automatically going to get one. What kind of laptop will I get? So don't avoid these middle topics, right? But ask a question that they never hear about. Yeah? Like, what created this passion for this? I mean, working in IT and in 5G. Yeah. So what created the passion for 2G to 5G in you? Something like this. Ask yourself, yeah, how you could be sharing the purpose of a company to the extent that you would forget how many hours you're going to put into it, because we're expecting you to put lots of hours, right? Not to see the time flying by. I'm done speaking on this one, but I hope to learn more about dating. Also, I'm curious. Great space. Thank you.
Thank you, Tweet Bloke. And you be careful out there. It sounds like you're close to the road. And, I don't know what happened, how you broke your ribs, but I hope it heals very quickly and you don't have to experience that again. But thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure you'll be able to get to hear more about the dating side of things when Mama B and the crew, the ladies, the ones in what she called it, preferment, the ones in preferment have that conversation about their speed dating endeavors. But I wanted to say, if anyone else wants to come up, we can take a few more people that may want to come up. If you have some additional questions that you may want to ask Raymona, and what I will do, I want to ask Raymona, some people see themselves as introverts, and the idea of being an introvert, people take it as, well, I don't talk much. I'm shy and I'm not a loud, really vocal person. What would you say is a good approach for people who don't feel like they are very well spoken or this quiet, shy type to still be able to stand out in an interview? What would you say they could do to still stand out?
I was thinking that before, if you know that you're an introvert, then again, the preparation is going to help you. So get with someone else, set up the questions and set up some mock interviews for yourself so that you can feel a little bit more comfortable or a lot more comfortable in going through the interview, because you know you're going to have to go through the interview process. So go through get a partner that can help you with the interviews. Ask the questions. You could do it on your phone of how you're going to respond to them. So that's how you're going to stand out, because you're just going to be a lot more prepared in it, because you know that you're going to have to talk to people. And again, you're working on a team. So you need to make sure that you know that you're going to communicate with others, even though you're an introvert.
Mm, thank you. Thank you. And I will say to all my introverts out there, because I too am an introvert, but I want to remind you, stop using the idea of being an introvert as an excuse to not try something. Don't let the fact that you're an introvert become the excuse that you don't try. And you don't have to be an extrovert to excel in your communication. Because remember, introversion is not about your ability, it's about the impact and the effect of your interaction with people and how it affects you. And it doesn't excite you. It becomes a mental drain trying to prepare yourself to have those interactions and engagements with people. That's what introversion is about, more so than your ability. So I want people to not use introversion or being an introvert as an excuse to not try. Because when you practice, you get better. And when you get better, you become more comfortable. And when you become more comfortable, you become more confident. Remember, confidence grows as a result of a track record of successes. And every time you have those conversations and you practice with your friends, as Ramona said, you get more comfortable and you begin to recognize that, hey, I actually can do this. And you begin to believe in yourself. It's like riding a bike. For those of you who have ridden a bike, I learned a couple years ago that a friend of mine who's almost is 50, he never ridden a bike before because he didn't grow up in that type of environment. But riding a bike or whatever it is that you had to learn how to do at some point in time, because we all had to learn something. And just remember, in the beginning, you stumbled, you fell, you may have scraped your knee or things just didn't go the way you expected, but you kept trying. And eventually you got to a place where you are now proficient and you can do certain things with your eyes closed without even thinking about it. And your ability to communicate, your ability to articulate in your interviews is the same way. You just have to take that barrier out of your mind and stop hindering yourself, worrying about making mistakes. And remember, you don't even have to just practice with your friends. Apply for jobs. You may want the job, you may not. But if they're willing to give you an interview, go get the practice. Because there are some companies out there that will post jobs and they'll interview all these people and they already know who they want to hire, but they may have a certain process they have to follow. So they need to interview all 50 people, even though the very first one is the one that they know they're going to hire. So go get the practice, go get a feel. You may impress them and they may change their mind or they may create a new position just for you. And you find out that, hey, I did not realize I would actually be interested in doing this. So find ways to put yourself in position, excuse me, to put yourself in positions to get that practice, to get comfortable being uncomfortable so that you can begin to excel. And you will get to a point where it doesn't matter what someone asks you, you'll be ready for it. And that's why, like, even in the space when we do the random topic challenges, you know how that day I said, I'm willing to take the challenge where not just a 60-second challenge, but you can give me a random topic and I'll do a 5-minute presentation about it. And that's just comfortable being uncomfortable because I understand how to take my time and think through what it is that I'm doing. And you can get to that point. So I just wanted to throw that out there and add that part to it. But Mama B, I saw your hand, and then we'll go to Krishna and then Waylon and Grace.
Yes, thank you. Oh my goodness, what a space and information here. I just wanted to drop this and maybe ask a question of Ramona because confidence is all through this. You know, that's the thread. You know, the Ramona talked about how they're looking at your body language even as you step into that room. Maybe even as you stepped into the reception area, you know, maybe they already were looking at you there. So that whole confidence is really important, and it comes against sometimes against some of these cultural norms or cultural indoctrinations or upbringing where and we were talking about this with Lozolia during the week about how I had and a lot of people have a problem or issue because of how they were raised. We're raised to be humble, not to toot your horn, just to, you know, just let other people recognize your giftings from, you know, for you. And then they can tell you whether you are good enough or whatever. And so, and then coming to North America where the whole script is shifted. It has shifted. I mean, it's different because you have to toot your horn. So I just wanted to say to the people in the space who may be coming from different parenting styles or social norms that in North America and maybe in other countries too, I'm sure now things are changing, that tooting your horn is part of that confidence that is necessary. So toot that horn because it's it shows whether you're confident or not. So it's not about looking down, not doing eye contact, because that's how many of us are raised. It's very rude to, to lock eyes with people, but this is in the context of different cultures. But in this culture here, in this society, looking people in the eye is part of that confidence. And so you cannot really pass an interview without being confidently tooting your horn. And when questions are asked, just toot that horn. And I'm passionate about this because I struggled. I was a victim of not being able to adjust to all of this tooting the horn. And so I just wanted to say that. And Ramona, the question to you then would be, do you see a lot of this cross-cultural barrier where people are not able to toot their horn when you ask them questions, and it is not because of their resume or their skill, but maybe because of just how they were wired by their childhood? I hope it makes sense. Thank you.
I do understand the question. I haven't seen too much of that because I think that now that we're doing the interviews, or that a lot of people will already have gotten the tools in order to come to the interview and talk about themselves. So it's very rare that I've seen anybody that is not going to talk about themselves because they feel comfortable. That's one thing people can do, is talk about themselves. Even with the cultural thing, and I don't know, maybe somebody had already told them before they got to me, but I haven't seen that where people aren't. I've seen people not prepared to answer questions, but not really been able to talk. Not the people that can't talk about themselves. But that's a good point to know, Mama D.
Thank
I
you.
know that.
Thank you. I think Tim would have, they came across Tim, and Tim told them to toot their horns when they get to you. I'm done speaking.
Okay.
Yes, and you have to, because some of you are sometimes you're the cream of the crop. And this example popped into my head as Mama B was speaking. An electric vehicle. You could be one of those high line, fancy electric vehicles. And if someone is standing there and you can drive up behind them on a smooth road and they have no clue that you're there, and you have to toot your horn in order for them to recognize that you're there. And that horn tooting creates visibility so that people know you're there. And you could be the fanciest car around. But if you're like an EV, electric vehicle, and you're silent, no one knows. And I remember standing outside the gym one night. We had a basketball game a couple years ago. And a friend of mine, he had gotten a new car. It was an EV, electric vehicle. And a couple of us were outside talking. And he got in his car after we finished speaking. And he gets in the car. I hear the door close and he's just sitting there. And then as me and the other guy are still speaking, suddenly I just hear rocks crackling. And I'm like, what is that? And this is him driving off in the car because the car was so quiet. The only reason I knew he was driving off in his car is because he was driving on gravel and the tires were rumbling the gravel. So sometimes that big fancy car, you got to toot the horn because you are some skilled and brilliant people in this space. And I know that. I don't even have to know what you do. I don't even have to know you personally to know that you are skilled and brilliant individuals, because we all have a certain area of expertise that we excel in. And we may not excel in the same thing, but you do what you do well. And you need to make sure people understand what it is that you do well, that you enjoy. They need to understand that you enjoy what you do as well, not just that you have the skills to do it. Ramona mentioned this earlier. She's listening for passion. She wants to know that you want to do this. That makes a difference. When someone joins a team just for a paycheck, their performance is not going to be the same as someone who feels a connection because you are helping to save the planet, for instance. And now they have an opportunity to help save the planet. And it's like, oh my God, I've been waiting on an opportunity like this. And that comes across. And that type of presentation says that you're going to give everything you have to help this organization be successful in that role. And that makes a difference. So keep that in mind. But let's go over to Waylon. Yes, Waylon. Go ahead, Waylon, and then Grace.
Well, a lot of things to talk about today. I actually remember some of the conversation last week, and I brought up how asking the interviewer questions is good. But I just thought about this as we're talking about tooting our own horns. I feel like there's a balance. You got to toot their horn a little bit too. Oh, hey, it's a nice place you got here. Oh, like, you just, maybe a little bit of flattery goes a long way, not too much. Obviously, you don't want to be a kiss up, but there is a balance. You don't want to just sound like you're too conceited. You throw out all your good points and then maybe toot their horn a little bit. I wanted to say though, I had this experience that I was really lucky in a unique way to do this, where I was able to go and interview at a company. It was a couple of states away. They paid for my, stay overnight. It was all this stuff, and so my warning is like to be worried about, or to be concerned, I guess, or to be aware that some companies will sort of wine and dine you, but really there may be like a something that they're not telling you, and this happened to be, I don't want to call it a pyramid scheme, but I believe it was. It just wasn't as bad as some of them are. And so I'll explain just a little bit. It was a situation where you come into an interview where you're in a room full of, or with several other people interviewing. So that to me is immediately a red flag that this is a pyramid scheme of some kind. Now I've sat in on those before, and a lot of times the biggest issue really is that they want you to buy a bunch of product and then go sell it. Well, this happened to be a company that did not make me do that. And so the only money I would have been out was, me driving around, my wear and tear on the vehicle, all of that. So I gave it a shot because like I said, it was a unique situation. I had just gotten my VA disability from the government, which took over 2 years. It was just an insane process. Like it was like someone saying, "Hey, you won the lottery, but we don't have any idea when you're going to get it." And so yeah, that was a frustrating part of my life. But when I finally got it, I thought, okay, I have this money. Let me give it a shot. Let me try this company that, it's 100% commission, which is another question altogether. So I guess I'll throw it back to you, Tim. What do you think about pyramid schemes and about how to protect yourself when it comes to when you get into an interview with a company that seems like it's too good to be true? They're whining and dining you. They're not giving you certain details that maybe you're not thinking about asking because of that. Have you ever been in that situation?
Well, yes, I guess I could say yes. I've found myself in situations where people have invited me to scenarios like that. And, the pyramid, it's a big no for me, because I've had a number of friends that have had great opportunities that they wanted to share with me. And in the beginning, there's limited information. You need to hear the presentation. You need to come to the meeting to really understand how it works. And it's a easy no for me. I tried it a couple times, and that doesn't work for me. And as it pertains to protecting yourself, you just have to understand what it is that you're wanting to get. And for some people, it actually works. Those organizations that the multi-level marketing organizations, they work for some people. So I won't even pretend that some people don't benefit. It's usually the ones at the beginning that can benefit from it. But you just have to know what you're trying to accomplish. And if what they're doing allows you to meet your goals, then go for it. But just be careful. I mean, if they're asking you for money up front, then it's probably it's going to be difficult. It's not your traditional work scenario. So I don't. I stay away from those myself. I stay away from those. If I'm going to interview for a position, I want a position where they're going to be training me. They're paying me to come show up and provide my services and my skills. So I just stay away from the multi-level stuff myself. Go ahead, Waylon.
Yeah, it was an obvious pyramid because they literally had on the wall they had a dry erase board with a big mountain drawn. Talk about symbolism, you know. It was like, well, if you get to the, you know, you work your way up here to this into the peak of this mountain. But secondly, they actually leaned a lot on religion. They were leaning on. They said this is a company owned and operated by firefighters. Well, what they really did was they had most of their employees sign up for like voluntary firefighters, and they had like some kind of connection in some way, so that way they could lean on that as their gimmick. And I, you know, no, you know, more power to them. But the whole way I was seeing these red flags, but I also still went ahead with it because I believed in the product, and I also had the time to do it. So you just have to be careful. If you know, if you need a real job really quick, that's probably not the route. But if you have a little leeway to try something out, you know, it's not always a bad thing. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. That's where you have to understand everyone. You have to understand what makes sense for you. As Waylon said, he had the time, he believed in the product, and the fact that he believed in the product was a green light that there was potential for him to actually do well in that environment, because it wasn't about climbing a ladder so much as being able to provide a product that he felt could be beneficial to people. So you just have to understand what makes sense to you, and don't base your decisions necessarily on other people's experiences or desires. You have to understand who you are and what you want and where you're trying to go, and then what it's going to take to help you get where you're trying to go. But, you know, in line with what we're discussing, what I would say is, if you go to an interview and they aren't willing to give you answers, you know, there's a lot of vagueness, and they aren't willing to be upfront and allow you to get clarification and understand what you're getting into. Remember, they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them, or at least you should be. You should be making sure that they're a good fit for you as well. And I think having that mindset when you go into an interview changes the dynamics of how you may feel inside. You don't feel as though you're an animal in the zoo and they're just watching you to see how you're going to behave and respond. It should be a conversation where you're trying to get to know one another to understand, does this make sense for both of us? It needs to make sense for both of you. And that's why one of the best times to get a new job is when you already have a job. You don't walk in with this sense of urgency where, oh, I have to take whatever they offer. If you're out of work and you're trying to figure out how to feed yourself, how to eat, how to take care of your family, you become more susceptible to whatever it is that people may offer. But you need to make sure that they're willing to give you some clarification. You want to add something, Raymond?
Yeah, again, it goes back to that word of expectations. Is if you're going in, as Waylon said, he went in, he didn't know it was a pyramid situation. But then when he got there, so his expectation is it's a risk I'm willing to take. But another person may go in and that's not the expectations that they wanted. So just know what you want in a job and know what you want in a company that you're working for. Because if it's against what your feelings are and what your beliefs are, it may not be a good fit for you when you go in there.
And those are some of the questions you need to be asking. That's why the culture questions, the questions about the team, to help you understand. If you're at a point where you're trying to find a low stress environment to work in, then you need to make sure you understand whether or not that's a low stress environment, because there are some places where they will go for the money. It's about the money or the status, and it runs you ragged. And you go back to the idea of the different types of nails. Some nails aren't built to function in certain situations. And I remember someone getting a position where she was promoted to a senior management role, and she did well. But what they call that area in that organization, that particular level in the company was known as the cardiac club. because a lot of people in that role or on that level, in that senior position, several of them had heart attacks because of the level of stress that came with the job, that came with making the money that they were making. So you need to understand, what is the environment? What is the culture? And is it the expectation that you have of the type of life you want to be living? And I see quite often people are transitioning to tech. And I see people talking about, I make $200,000, I make $300,000, and they may, but that $200,000 and $300,000 comes with some high expectations of you. They aren't going to just give you that without expecting you to be an absolute keyboard warrior, getting things done. The expectation of your time, it elevates. You're expected to solve problems whenever they arise. So you have to understand that and make sure you get that information to make a decision that's going to be mutually beneficial. You want it to be as mutually beneficial as possible. And I'm not suggesting that you get to go in dictating terms and throwing around demands and making all these requests of the organization or the interviewer, but you need to figure out a way how to make sure you understand that the expectations you have of the organization you want to be a part of are being met on some level that's acceptable to you, that you're willing to say yes if they offer you the position. So let's go now over to Grace. Grace and then Ingrid.
Yeah, a couple times there was the same thought, Tim, about character and Mama B. People are watching us and we don't realize. And it really comes down to our character. They can often teach you what they need to teach you in a job for that position, but who you are, they can't teach you. So they're looking for your character. So that's the key thing. And that's why we really want to teach the young people, by being a good model for that, knowing who we are and why we want the job, the why. And sometimes we do have to take a job and learn how we don't want to be treated. We can learn a lot in each relationship, either how we do like to be treated or how we don't want to be treated, and we learn from that. So it's been a great space to think deeply about these things, to think about why we're doing what we're doing, and to keep dreaming. I hope that we all are dreaming and doing what we love to do and bringing value, because I chose to be a homemaker and a mom, and I'm so grateful. I thought about it as a teenager, very young person. What do I want to be? And I thought about I loved books. I loved, libraries. Maybe I'll be a librarian, but I didn't want to be inside that much. So really, thinking about the job and where you're going to be, the situation. And one more little story about introvert. People probably can't believe that I'm an introvert. I used to be. But when I got married young, and I got, character. Somebody picked me for my character, and his character won me. And so he was in the Navy. We moved very far from family, and we were only going to be there 6 months. And I was missing friends, and I wanted friends. So we visited a new church, and I'm sitting there, the new person, shy, not wanting, waiting for someone to say hi. And I realized, I'm only here for a little bit. I better go say hi to somebody. So I went over after the church was over, and I went down the pew and said, "Hi, my name is such and such, and this is my first time here." And she said, "It's my first time too." And ever since then, I realized somebody's waiting for somebody to say hi first. And that took me out of my comfort zone. Think about the other person that's waiting for your story, your area of expertise, what you have to offer. And if it's the hand of friendship, isn't that more than enough? I'll end with that, and have a good day, and extend a hand of friendship. Come up and take the mic. Practice. Somebody will be inspired by your story.
Mm, someone is always waiting for someone to come say hello. You never know. And this kind of goes back to Bob's question earlier about what can you do prior to the interview? And it's making yourself visible. Making yourself visible. The hello could be a moment of visibility that people need. to recognize who you are, to begin to understand and inquire about what it is that you have to offer. And I think I've shared here how the things that I've done since 20, what is it, 20, no, 19, 2003. For the most part, most of the things that I've done have been because work-wise, it's because someone I knew, and because of what I presented, character and a demonstration of what it is that I had the ability to do. Someone would come to me. I worked 4 different positions, because someone at my church saw the way that I worked at my church, and they reached out to me to be a part of things that they were doing. And that's how my career has progressed until I ended up, doing what I do now. And it's just amazing how that happens. But that goes back to tooting the horn. As Waylon was saying, you want to be confident without being cocky. So there's tooting your horn where you give the little dent dent versus just slamming the horn and being obnoxious with it. And you have to figure out where that middle ground is, and thinking about what Ramona said, where you don't just go on and on and on about yourself, or on and on and on about all the great things that you've done. You have to understand how to sprinkle it in there so that you can be comfortable with it. Because you absolutely need to be able to toot your horn and make sure you present what it is you offer and present the value that you have. You just will not get seen if you don't. Otherwise, how can people know what you have to offer if you don't tell them? You have to be able and willing to tell them, and that's okay. But toot your horn, everyone, so people know. That's where the opportunities come from. Speaking in these spaces, you never know. You just never know. So allow yourself to become visible so people recognize you. And it could be as simple as being that person in the room that never lets the new person feel isolated and alone. And that's one of the things that I do. I always did it at my church. Every new person, they knew me. I made sure I met and spoke and engaged with every single person that was a new face. I do it on the job. When I know people are new, I reach out and help them feel comfortable. That's visibility. Not that I'm doing it because I want something. I'm doing it because that's part of leadership. That's part of helping to establish and reinforce a culture. Because all the new people that I do that with, they take that to heart and they say, well, you know what, man, I really appreciated that. Let me reach out to this new person that I just know came on board the other day. And you begin to build those behaviors. You're reinforcing behaviors that make it better for everyone. And I know that's kind of drifting away from the interviews, but that's okay. This is important, because when you go into interviews, this type of mindset carries over into how you will present yourself in interviews, as you are sharing how you are collaborative in the interview. You can talk about how you always make sure people feel welcomed. That's being collaborative, because in a team, in an organization, you need people to get as comfortable and assimilated as quickly as possible into your organization in order for them to be productive and more impactful to the bottom line. And when you are that type of person who can show that, yes, I always make sure I welcome and greet and ingratiate the new folks, that says a lot. And that could go a long way. That could go farther than a couple bullet points on your resume, because you have some technical skills. But as Ramona says, she can't teach you your character. She can't teach you how to present yourself. But you can demonstrate that, yes, I collaborate and I see people and I make sure that people know they're welcome in my environments. So again, that was a side note, but it was relevant. It was relevant. So let's go now. I think we have Ingrid. You wanted to add something, and then Hero X. And then I know Bob's hand was up a moment ago. He may have changed his mind. But any other questions? So we have another 20 minutes. So in case someone else has a question for Ramona, make sure that's already up. Anyone else that's already up here, because we stopped taking the new speakers at 1.
Very good, Tim. You caught that one real quick and you fixed it. I like that. I just wanted to say that when Mama B spoke on a topic, yes, I understand totally about the name situation, but it's always nice. I think, like, even if you think that you might have been turned down because of your name, there's also, if you get turned down, you're supposed to follow with a thank you letter for the opportunity of on the interview and express your, that you thought you will, whatever you think you would have added, and you should have gotten the job, and that could have maybe land something on that person. Like, look at that, look at this person had the fortitude to follow up with a letter to and maybe look at you the next time, or you get a call from them next time. Because a lot of time the bigots that are out there is because they don't know better. That's why they're called bigots. And once they get to know who you are, they might see things differently. How many times you met people, they say, "Oh, I thought you were so different," or "You are different." It's like they have this imagination, not the difference that you're special. They're just shocked that you are basically like them. And once you realize that, then you win the game. So I wanted to add that, because I've had experience with last name making a difference. But if you know it makes a difference at a time, like with a mortgage or something that is math. The math does math. You could basically then say, "Is it my name that might have hindered my application?" And then you'll see how fast you get that application approved. Just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Hmm. There you go. You never know those, and they can get into some very sensitive situations. But understanding what you're doing, understanding what your options are, what your rights may be, the ability to be able to appeal in some situations, and some organizations allow you to appeal if you don't get a response, or if you receive a rejection that you were not selected. There are instances where you can ask why and potentially have them review your information again to make sure they didn't miss something. So thank you for that, Ingrid. Hero X, welcome to the space. Great to see you.
Yeah, you as well. Usually I'm listening in. I'm very content just listening as I'm doing my chores every Saturday. But the topic is very relatable this time. I couldn't resist coming up. So um, I don't know if I'll try to keep it concise. I know we're on a schedule here, but there's a few different things. I wanted to touch on what Ingrid just said. Um, I've experienced that as well, and I don't always pursue it. But and when I say I experienced that, I mean I've been denied for something, and I went to ask why. I don't always pursue the question, but this one particular time, I had a lot of experience in what they were looking for, and I was just really confused. And I went back, and the answer they finally gave me was that I was overqualified for the position. Now, I don't know I don't know if that's true or if they were just kind of saying that to get me off their back. I mean, I was being respectful in my pursuit of that knowledge, but that was the answer I got. And so, I still wonder sometimes, and I'm going through this right now too. I've recently, I was working in like a warehouse setting for about 6 years. And then for the past 2.5 years, I've been working remotely, doing, Web3 type stuff. I actually started my own digital marketing company in March last year, but it's not something that's sustainable. So at the current moment, I'm out looking for work again, and I'm finding it difficult because even getting to the interview process is a bit of a struggle. And I don't know if it's me or, a lot of times you get these personality quizzes or assessments, and you'll get questions that you need to choose between things like honesty versus always working your fastest or something. And me, I'm like, well, it's important to be honest, of course. And sometimes that'll fail you or something. So I guess I don't know if I have a specific question, but maybe just if others have had similar experiences where you start to question, am I picking the right answers to these questions? And I just filled out one today, and I'll end after this. they actually made you, choose from certain qualities, and then you had to give your reasons why. And so I'm hoping that they see this, and now that they'll understand my reasoning. And just as a last example, they said, what's more important, work-life balance and mental health, or challenging and fast-paced environment. And I said, challenging and fast-paced environment is part of a work-life balance. I would choose that. I know you want me to pick the challenging and fast pace so that it indicates that I'm a hard worker, but you can work hard and play hard, and the balance is what's more important. Anyway, I think that was maybe 5 minutes or so. So I'll end there, and I just wanted to throw that out into the discussion to see if anybody has found a challenge in getting to the interview because of these personality tests.
Yes, it's a great question. And Mama B, you want to respond to that before I share something?
No, it was a comment.
Okay. Well, before Raymona, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I just want to don't get, it may not be the personality questions, it may be the number of applicants, especially in the current environment. There are a whole lot of people that are unemployed right now. So if they have an announcement and they get 1,000 people, they're not going to interview 1,000 people. So they may have to cut it down some way. So I said, don't get discouraged. It's about the numbers. And if you are a faith person, what is for you is for you. And so whatever position that is your Almighty has set up for you, you'll get it. So just don't get discouraged, because there's a lot of people unemployed right now and a lot of applicants for just like one vacancy.
Got it. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's interesting. There was another one, and I'll keep this really short. Just as another example, I applied for another. I think it was a position with Amazon, and they did the little personality quiz first, and then you do the resume after. So I didn't even. They didn't know. They didn't get the chance to know that I have 7 years of warehouse experience operating all different kinds of equipments, and even having a supervisory role. They were more concerned with, is it better to be honest or a fast worker? And I probably could have run the place. But, anyway, I appreciate that advice and that comment. Thank you.
And that is those assessments, to Raymona's point, it absolutely could be about the numbers. And sometimes those assessments are absolute barriers in some circumstances. And this comes down to a point where, when I mentioned earlier, sometimes if you want to play in their game, you have to play it their way. And both of those statements, like, do you prefer work-life balance over a fast-paced environment where you work a lot of hours? They can both be true. So right now, because I want this job, then I prefer the fast-paced environment. If that's what makes the most sense for you and your circumstances, and you're still telling the truth. And that's where the nuances come in, and those little tests like that and assessments. I mean, you really, when you look at the type of organization that you're applying for, you kind of know what they want to hear, what they want to see. And if it means enough to you, you give them the answers that they want, so that you're able to then have an opportunity to demonstrate the value that you can bring to the organization. Otherwise, you never get a chance. And I was speaking with one of my sisters before, and she was looking at an assessment, and they were wanting to see, are you consider yourself an expert in a certain area or just a novice? And I sat there for like 5 minutes, it felt like, discussing one question, trying to convince her that she has the ability to legitimately label herself as an expert. And it's amazing how the people who tend to have the most skill and the most qualification are the least likely to own it and accept the fact that they have the expertise to be considered an expert. They're the ones that will say, well, I kind of know it a little bit. But the ones who have no skill or very little, they'll claim expert with no second thoughts. So roll with it the way that they're trying, with what they need to hear. if you know that they both can apply, if they're both true, use the one that helps you get where you're trying to go. If that's what you're trying to do, your expectation. Do you want the position? So something to keep in mind. And I did want to ask Raymona, as far as the overqualified piece that he mentioned, how do you handle that, or do you see people as being overqualified, or if you feel like their level of experience and expertise exceeds what the position calls for, how do you typically handle that?
The only one when he was made that statement, I was kind of laughed, and I was like, if they have an intern position, which is like really really entry level, and this is not in the current environment. I was saying before, is like you're saying this person, you may assume that person's going to be bored because it's an entry level position, and that's what you're looking to train somebody to do, and this person may be the expert. But in today's environment, I think you probably don't people don't probably don't think that way anymore, because there's a whole lot of people that are out of work, and you may have an expert that's willing to take an intern position just to get in to get a job done. But I, I have never used that. It says this person's overqualified, but people will use anything these days.
Yeah, they will, and sometimes it's an excuse. But Mama B, and then we'll go to Bob.
Yeah, it's just going to be quick. Thank you, Tim. When you were talking about what you do in your church, that you make it a point to know the new person, and how that sort of like ripples out. You By doing that, you've created an atmosphere for that person to feel good and be nice to other people too. And I thought about it made me think of what you always say to us here in the space about you can be, or you are the thermostat, not the temperature, but you are the thermostat of in each room that you go into. And so applying it to this situation with an interview, I thought, yeah, we need to go into the interview room with that in mind, that I can be a thermostat in this space. I'm not really just a victim of how I feel when I see these people, and how are they looking at me? Are they smiling? Are they nice? Whatever. No, just walk in with all your niceness and your goodness and all the goodies inside of you, and just express yourself or walk in that way, thinking that you know what, I'm not victim to how the people or how I feel the people, but I can create my own temperature in here. I can be the thermostat of this interview and the experience I'm about to have. Because sometimes you kind of create your own experience by how you present yourself. Because many times I think we're just victim to how other people treat us, but we could walk into situations with a different mindset, that I can be the thermostat in here. I'm done speaking. Thank you.
You absolutely can. You absolutely can. You can set the tone, even though you aren't the person that's in charge and leading it. Your demeanor, the way you engage, you can set the tone. Find a way to put a smile on their face and make them comfortable with you. Just like I feel like the interviewer should try to make the candidate as comfortable as possible. Because not that they need to be coddled, but when you figure out how to help the candidate feel comfortable, you tend to get better responses from them. And it gives you an opportunity to get a better understanding of who they are. Because when you're tense, you don't give your best when you're tense. As an athlete, when you're writing in a relationship, we just don't give our best when we're tense. So if you are interviewing people, try to make them comfortable. And even as the candidate, to Mama B's point, see if you can't make them comfortable with you, because people buy from people they like, they date people they like, and they also hire people they like. They invest in people they like. You may not have been the absolute best candidate on paper, but there was something about you that was a little bit different. There was a different type of connection that you created. You set the temperature in the room, and you open the door for you to become that one that they felt, oh, I would love to work with this person. And as Ramona has said, I can teach them how to do the job, but I can't teach them how to be who they are. So something to keep in mind. And also, this is another point as far as greeting people, like at the church. I greet them, and then I also try to make sure I introduce them to at least 2 or 3 other people. And I try to leave them in a conversation with someone else and not leave them standing alone. So I make sure that they connect with other people in the environment as well. So add that little point to it. But let's go over to Bob and then Waylon. And then we're going to be
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Right on, Tim. Thank you very much. It's been a very interesting discussion. I know you're running out of time very, very quickly. So-called experts was mentioned, and you noodled on it a little bit, Tim. I appreciate the drive and confidence that a lot of people have, and others who are tentatively saying they know a little about something. Obviously, the statement "so-called expert" and positioning yourself is as an expert is subjective. Shout out to Hero and Tweetblog. I would love to have the discussion another time about getting to the interview stage, where and what we should be doing in 2025. I'm told again and again, it's the people around you, your connections that know you, who end up getting you that other connection and the interview. And when I first put my hand up, I was noodling on the idea of speed dating spaces. I thought that would be a great idea. So many great ideas I've never executed. Anyway, the thought crossed my mind about networking events and what the crossover is between dating and networking, what the difference and the analogy continues to perhaps the interview stage is like going out for dinner, getting to know each other. And that might be what leads to a marriage, you and the business exchanging vows and signing the contract, and eventually you getting the job. So I don't know. There's a lot to go on here. I appreciate you having your guest speaker. Thank you very much, Ramona. And thank you very much for having me up, Tim.
Absolutely. And that's a cross pollination, that speed dating, speed interviewing. And that could very well be something that is implemented and executed. And you'll be surprised how many people would probably participate in that from both sides of the table, the interviewers and the candidates, because you never know what may happen. Because even though when you're on the side of trying to find a job, it's difficult for those looking as well, because they get a lot of resumes from people who may not be qualified, and they have to sift through those things and then spend the time trying to identify the individuals that would make the most sense, because it's expensive to hire people. It costs money, it costs time, and they're trying to do it as efficiently as possible. So that's something to think about, Bob. Waylon, go ahead, sir.
Great space so far. Well, I know we're closing up soon, but I wanted to bring up you kind of touched on a little bit of when you reach back out to a place that you've applied. Maybe it's been a week or two and they haven't responded. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing to reach out. It's just that there's a fine line between bugging the heck out of them and just making it seem like you're more interested, because I think it was Tweet Bloke talking about this. You may not know this, but everyone who's in that interview process is still a question mark until the job is full. And even when they fill the position, sometimes it doesn't work out right away, and they say, "Oh, this happened or that happened, so we will look at you now." And sometimes you miss that opportunity by thinking, "Well, they'll get a hold of me if they want me." But really, they're like you said, Tim. They're swamped. They have a stack of interviews. Maybe they have the guy they like, but they're not even sure. Maybe he didn't respond in time, and now you're the one that seems more eager for it. And so you definitely have to reach back out. You just you don't want to do it the next day and like every day. There's a fine line. There was something else I had, but it's all right. Almost into the space, and it was a great day, and I hope everybody has a good holiday.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for that reminder too. Happy Mother's Day, just in case I don't speak to all the mothers that are here tomorrow. So I hope you all have a fantastic Mother's Day. But yes, Waylon, the follow up, and again, everyone remember, every interviewer, every hiring manager is different. They have different expectations. And I guess we can see, Raymond, do you have any thoughts about the follow up after the interview?
Um, just to be honest, generally, the person that you're going to follow up with is probably the person that set up the interview. Because we generally don't put our emails out there as far as the people that are actually the interview panel is not the people that are going to be sending you the information. So you're going to get that administrative person that set up the interview. So, and they do share that information with us. But a lot of times that from the interview to the selection may take a little bit more time. It could be there's follow-up interviews too, also. You can, but again, there is a fine line between the follow-ups and being a pest, because it's that administrative person is the one that's going to probably be responding to you.
Absolutely. And that's where understanding both sides of the table, being empathetic to everybody's situation. And I know if we're trying to get a job, it's hard to be understanding and patient with the level of effort that's required on their side. We don't even consider how much they may be going through trying to get us or get someone hired. And that should help us be a little more patient and understanding. And if you do happen to have a phone call and get to speak with someone, be kind and courteous, because I think Waylon said, you may be the person that they choose as the backup. The original candidate they selected may have decided, well, I don't want the job anymore. I thought about it and I didn't like the response, so I'm going to do something different. And now you become the next person. But if you don't do things the right way, if you don't handle yourself the right way, then you lose that opportunity or that possibility. And the follow up does kind of help bring you to the top of mind to some people, but you never know what the scenario is and how the process works. And it could be different from organization to organization, how that works. You may never actually get to speak with the hiring manager to ask them questions. And as Ramona said, sometimes it's the recruiter or that administrator that you talk to, and they don't actually get to make the decision. It isn't their decision. They're just facilitating the process. So all these little details that we have to be aware of to make sure that you don't get discouraged, that you don't get overly frustrated about the process or the timing, but that you continue moving forward, control what you can, and just do the work that you need to do on your end and just keep moving forward. But let's see. So it is 1:33, and what I want to do is I will tweet bloke. I know your hand was up, so tweet bloke, and I know I take another minute or two. So by we're gonna be out of here by 1:40. So tweet bloke, go ahead. I'll let you go ahead because I know you want to follow up.
What a great space! What a great way you have to lead these spaces. You know, you provide pieces of deep insight in human interaction, and then you also let the people speak. That's the right balance. Yeah, you're a great pro. Okay, you said something which struck me several times. Yeah, protect yourself. And I have a tip for people passing interviews. There's a great distance between the HR side of a company, and you refer to the admins, right? And then the people who you're really going to work with, whether they're in production, in sales, in marketing, whatever, support. So a great distance. There is, in fact, in that triangle between HR, the operational people, let's call them, and you, there is a strong line between you and HR, a strong line between you and the people who you're going to work for, and then a very dotted thin line in the back end of this game. So protect yourself. Speak the language of the HR people with the HR people. Some people said, should I choose? Well, there was this question about work-life balance versus I want a maximum drive in my job or whatever. The answer is with HR, work-life balance. And the right answer with the operational people is I'm going to do, and I'm going to work without counting my time, because I share your passion. So the answer is different. And protect yourself, by speaking the HR language with the HR people. Be aware if you're a bit older like me, like I'm 54, I will never apply for a job again, I don't think so. But be aware that there might be also an age gap between you and the HR people. So speak their language, look up the right formulas. And Tim, it's because I think you're loving people a lot, that you gave this.
Unknown caller.
Thank you for that tweet, bloke. And I got a call right at the end when he was finishing. But yeah, great words. You have to speak the language of the people that you're dealing with, and that's why understanding who's in front of you, and as much research as you can, as Ramona said, preparation. And I'll throw this in there to Bob's question about what can you do beforehand. A couple things that I would say to look at doing is researching the company and using the platforms where you can identify individuals who may have worked in that organization or who may currently work in the organization, and reach out to them, make a connection, and share with them openly and honestly that, hey, you know what, I've seen your organization and I love what the company does, and I've considered applying for a position, and I would love to know what it's like working for that organization. And that may become a new best friend for you. But at the least, most people are willing to share about their experiences, especially if it wasn't a good one. They're willing to say that. But when it is a good experience, people are usually proud to share that they work for a company that they have a good experience. So that's something you can do. And that now creates additional visibility where someone in the organization knows who you are. Now you have an advocate, and you can continue to meet people. They may be able to introduce you to other people to help you learn even more, and then further expand your network of people who may be able to let you know that, hey, Bob, this isn't on the internet yet, or it may not be, but this is a position that they posted, and we have the ability to refer outside candidates to this job. So that's something that you could look at doing, because the network of people that you're connected to is absolutely important. But if you already have a job, then making sure that you still maintain that visibility where you are. Do more than is expected. Don't settle for the status quo. Solve problems, find problems to solve for other people, and put yourself in a position where you can make life easier for others. And that sets you apart, because people know that you're going to get things done. When they know they can count on you to get things done, when they know that if there's a challenge or a problem that they can trust, when it's given to you, is going to get done, that opens the door. And people talk. They talk about when you do bad things, and they're going to talk about it when you do things that make them happy and that make their life easier. And that's part of the way you make yourself visible, is making sure that you're solving problems and making life easier for other people. And that will open doors for you, even if it's in the space, Bob, in your particular case. Find people strategically that are doing things or that are in positions that may be at a company that you want to be a part of, and connect with them. Figure out what you can do to help them in some form or fashion. And you'll be surprised how doors can be open for you doing that. But with that said, I want to go ahead and see if Raymona, you have any final thoughts that you want to share, final tips that you feel would be important for people to keep in mind?
Tim, first of all, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity, and I want to thank you to all of the participants today. Preparation. so that when you go in, that you'll have the facts that you have. Get those bullet comments down. Be confident in yourself during that interview, because it will come across to others. Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, just be confident in yourself. Concise and quality answers to the questions, and have some good questions to ask them as far as what the company is, about the mission, what about the environment that you're going to have. So with all of those things and just the way that you've been talking today, I'm sure that all of you are going to do great when it comes to your career moves.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And thank you again so much for being here, Raymond. I really appreciate that. And I knew it was going to be very insightful for everyone that has a chance to hear this either live or on the replay. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Mama B.
Oh my goodness, ditto to that, Tim. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Ramona, for being here. This was invaluable. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your generosity of heart and spirit in sharing everything you know. Well, I'm sure we didn't touch all of it. So thank you, and Tim, thank you for bringing our guest and this invaluable space that you provide for us here. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. I'm done.
Absolutely. And I thank you all, everyone that has come up to speak and share your thoughts and ask the questions. That's how we grow. That's how we get better. And for some, coming up to ask a question is a first step to become a more confident and effective communicator. Because it's very rare that you're the only person with a question that you may ask. So don't be afraid to do that and get the answers you need. It's still part of the practice process. That's part of the preparation that Ramona has reiterated. She says preparation, preparation, preparation. And we say practice, practice, practice. And everything she's saying, it's all in alignment with what we're trying to do. So it reinforces the goal of what we're trying to accomplish here. So I want to thank you, Brenda, Lawan, Lazolia, Sprinkle, Jules, Edith, Kuol, Debbie, Roseanne, Kevin, also Converse Collectus, Jane X, Bella, H Bar. We also have Enix, Nitesh, Nasabi. We have the Modest Queen, Solomon, Anna, Krishna. And I know we were wanting to hear from you, Krishna, but hopefully you can join us next week and you can still share what you were going to ask or pose to us next week. But thank you all for being here. I absolutely appreciate you, and never take your presence for granted, because I know that there's so many other things you could be doing right now with your time, but you choose to spend a little bit of it here with us. So thank you all. And I hope that you all have a fantastic rest of the day, fantastic rest of the weekend. And to all you mothers, have a fantastic Mother's Day as you celebrate. And, just stay blessed in all you do, everyone. So until next time, love you all and be well. Thank you for joining today's episode of the Confident Speaking Space. Your contributions as a speaker and your presence listening live or on the replay are greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed the experience and want to show some love, feel free to visit the link on my profile and buy me a coffee. Until we meet again, I pray you have a fantastic week ahead. So be blessed, be safe, and be intentional about becoming a more confident and effective communicator. Let's get it.
we gonna overthrow.